Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to take a little journey back and look at the history of the Speedo Fastskin suits in the bodysuit era. So today we've got 4 models to look at, and I've got a pair of leg skins of each of these models. And they sort of summarised what Speedo were doing all the way from their very first Fastskin all the way through to the LZR Racer that really was the catalyst of the suits getting banned in 2009. So although the Speedo Fastskin wasn't the very first tech suit, not from Speedo or anyone, Speedo themselves had the Aqua Blade that come before this. This really was the first model that set the world on fire. Released prior to the Sydney Olympics in 2000, this came in a range of wearing styles, from the leg skins we have here, to the full body suit, to the full arm suit with the sleeves, to a standard woman's costume. As I said, we've got the bodysuit and the leg skin here. They put a lot of research. This material was 75% polyamide with 25% elastane. It was the first suit that started to talk about compression with this sort of stretchy lycra material that really isn't too compressive, but compared to what people were wearing previously was probably quite dramatic. It didn't really have any water repellency treatment. It has these garish seams on there, run everywhere. I mean, this has more seams than I thought was ever needed for a pair of leg skins, but that was just the way it was. And it come in a range of cool colors, from this pretty standard black one here to this sort of more GB styled blue and red suit, all the way to the Australians green one, and many more colors. The big thing with the Fastskin was that they sort of looked into how shark skin helps them swim so fast through the water, and it actually has these shark scales on the suit that you can see, and they really sort of show up when the suit gets wet. The bodysuit variations obviously did have a zipper at the back, although you could get the leg skin in the women's version with an open back. So instead of a closed back and open back variation like we have nowadays for women's knee skins, you had a zip back or an open back, obviously with the open back being easier to get on. That was something they never done in male suits. The male suits always had a closed zip back variation. Now, for the next 4 years, Speedo didn't launch anything, and it was only on the lead up to the Athens Olympics when they dropped the Fastskin 2. Now, if I'm going to be completely honest, I would say this is the smallest increment in performance in terms of the Speedo suits to date. There wasn't dramatic differences, and to be honest, the actual main Fastskin material, as far as I can tell, didn't really change. It still had them shark scales. It still was 75% polyamide, 25% elastane. It doesn't feel any thinner. It's still a thick material. It just looks a little bit more modern. And I don't just mean in terms of the design here, but also just, you know, this hasn't got ridiculous amounts of seams. It doesn't have a seam literally running down the front of the crotch. It doesn't have these weird seams sort of placed on your calf as if they were actually doing something. It has a lot less seams, still stitch seams, and it actually says these are better flat stitch seams with so many seams per inch or whatever. Like, these are meant to be high grade stitches, but stitches nonetheless. Now, for the bodysuits, they did add another material called, I think it was called Flexskin, and I think that just sort of in the bodysuits was the bit under the armpit, and it just added comfort to some of the bits where you wouldn't want such a compressive material as the Fastskin. So they did introduce another material, but I don't even think it features in the slightest on this leg skin I have here. So it just shows how small an increment that was. The other thing they done with the FS2 was add these little plastic nibs on the suit. And on the bodysuits, they sort of covered the chest. I think there was one variation where it had some on the back. And this was to show that some sharks actually have these sort of like little spines on them that help them sort of break up the water around them and make them faster. Although the early FS2s had this, FINA ultimately banned it and they disappeared on later models such as this one, although there was never any of this on the leg skins. Anyhow, I actually had a bodysuit, a green and grey one, that did have this on the chest. It was probably not allowed by the time I was wearing it, but at the level I was swimming back then, I don't think anyone really cared. It was in the next suit that I think Speedo made the biggest strides forwards. And in 2007, prior to the World Championships, they dropped the FS-Pro, the Fastskin Pro. Now, I say this was the biggest improvement, because it was a radical design change in the material used. And we move into that sort of polyamide elastane with 75% polyamide, 30% elastane, papery material, water repellent material, quick drying fabric that we see today in most suits in some variation. While it still feels a little thicker than some of the models we have today, it is well and truly in that same sort of vein, whereas the FS2 and the Fastskin don't feel like any suits we currently wear. The FS-Pro really does. It still has stitched seams, and it was sort of easily recognised for these swishers it had on the ankles. This suit was a radical step forwards. They done awesome team editions for all the different nationalities in the 2000 World Championships. I really like the Canadian version that you saw Brent Hayden win the 100 freestyle in. It was a super cool suit. I actually had a pair of the jammers of these in a different colourway that I used to love, and I used to wear them solely for breaststroke. There was a thing in them days that you didn't want something going over your knees for breaststroke, so I had a jammer for breaststroke and bodysuits for everything else. The reality was I'd have just been quicker in the bodysuit, but that was a weird little thing we had going on back then. The FS-Pro, I think, was a radical change. It was, you know, water repellent like we know suits to be today. It was papery, it was thin, it was light, it was much better at compressing. And I think it paved the way for what come next for Speedo. Now, it was only another year before Speedo released their next tech suit, the LZR Racer. This was game-changing, and it really did take what was on the way of being what we know today to being what we know today. This was the first suit with bonded seams, which is a feature in any jammer anyone's ever talked about. Like, unless I'm sort of reviewing one of the real bottom end, low end jammers, we just expect that bonded seams are a thing. But until 2008, no model had bonded seams. This was the first suit with bonded seams. The material feels thinner than on the FS-Pro, but to be honest, it says it's 70% polyamide, 30% elastane, so it probably is the same base material as the FS-Pro, just without the stitch seams. Feels a little bit different, or maybe it is just a bit thinner. But as I said, the FS-Pro really did pave the way for the LZR Racer. They just added the bonded seams, and then, but obviously the biggest feature was the polyurethane panels that were strategically placed on the suit for extra speed, for extra buoyancy, and were obviously abused by other brands the year later. We also saw a few other jumps forwards, such as the waistband on the LZR Racer, which again is like the waistband you'll see on most models today, that is more like a football short, in opposed to the stitched, whatever you want to say the FS-Pro has, and even the leg grippers with the little rubber seal on the bottom, again like we see on most jammers, and a big step forwards to what the FS-Pro had. So the LZR Racer really did set the tone for not only bodysuits and leg skins the year later, but even to the jammers we have today. The one thing I would say was really weird about the LZR Racer leg skins was just how short they are. And these are a size 27, both the FS2 and the Fastskin are 32s, and the FS-Pro were a 28. But even if you just hold them at the same waist level, you can see that the legs on the FS-Pro go maybe a few inches lower. And when I even wear these lasers today, which I think would be the right size, they sit like here on my calves. And you could even see someone like Michael Phelps when he wore the leg skin version for the 100 butterfly, where he famously just touched out Milorad Cavic at the Beijing Olympics. They were just as short on his legs as they were mine. So that is a history into Speedo's Fastskin, and it's still a branding they use today, be it as a prefix to their laser Pure Intent, which is still a Fastskin model, or even to the Fastskin 3, which was finally a true successor to the FS2 in 2004. I personally have raced back in the day in a LZR Racer, an FS2, and an FS-Pro, although I never actually had an old school Fastskin 1. Thanks for watching this video, and if you could take the time to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, check me out on Instagram at the swimsuitguy95, and as always, I'll see you on the next video.